Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, senior editor behind thesteelcurtain.com, with you for another episode of the postgame show. Just two people tonight. I think Bryan Anthony Davis is getting his Wilderness Explorer badge or something tonight, but he's not with us. So joining me is Dave Schofield. What's up, Dave?
Not too much. Sorry, I screwed up. I didn't hit the music, but that's all right.
It is what it is.
Okay. It is what it is. We're here to be with you all. That's good stuff.
That's right. The Steelers are victorious somehow, some way. They found a way to beat the Jaguars.
I got to ask you right now. I've got to ask you right now. Did you care when that field goal went up from 57 yards? Did it matter to you if they were going to win or not?
No, honestly, when I was really ticked off, and we'll talk about this. I was really ticked off when they didn't put Kenny Pickett in to start the third quarter. And when I said to myself, I've got to sit through 2 quarters of Mason Rudolph with a bunch of backups. It just didn't matter anymore.
I thought they were going to give Pickett one drive in the third quarter because he didn't get enough. But I think they came in with a plan of Mason getting the second half, and they should have adjusted the plan, but they didn't. And I mean, in all honesty, Mason Rudolph's gotten the shaft more than any of those guys. Well, other than Chris Oladokun, of any of the quarterbacks so far. So maybe they just didn't want to do that. I don't know. I would have loved to see another Kenny Pickett drive.
Yeah, I mean, people saying, well, maybe they wanted to showcase Mason Rudolph. What else can you showcase? The guy's played more preseason snaps in the last 5 years than maybe anyone else in the league. I mean, I don't understand that.
Whoa. But we keep saying we don't care. We want to see what Matt Canada's offense is this year because last year didn't matter. But now we're saying that Mason Rudolph's preseason last year matters. No, we want to see him this year. I don't buy into that at all.
No, I don't bind any of it because but we have a $10 super chat here.
I know.
I want to get this up on the screen. Dave Dixon gives us $10. Thank you very much. He actually said on Twitter he had a super chat. I didn't know he was going to do it before the show started. But Dave, thank you for the tip. KP8 preseason stats. He added them all up: 19 of 22 for 171 yards, 3 touchdowns, a 142 QBR, 1 incompletion was a spike. He said, not trying to buy into the hype, but it's looking pretty good. The Jags broadcast does not leave their biases at the door. Now, you got to remember, folks, okay, so in the preseason, just like Bob Pompiani and Charlie Badge, like they are the home team call, so they don't have to be neutral. It was brutal. Trust me, I get it. It was brutal, but they don't have to be neutral. But, Dave, before we get into that talking point, look at these preseason stats. What do you think about Kenny Pickett?
I was helping out to do the knee-jerk reaction article tonight with my brother, and I said in there, I was going into this game expecting Kenny Pickett to struggle. I was expecting him to struggle. He was playing against more varsity competition. It wasn't the friendly confines of Acrisure Stadium. I got the right one this time.
Yep.
And it was just a different environment. And wasn't it nice to set low expectations and then just be absolutely in love with what happened? Yeah. So when it came to KP8, I mean, his rating was we'll get to that. It was better than last week. And I put the tweet out at halftime and I was thinking like so far, because I was expecting him to come back for another series, that his only incompletion was the spike. And he had 2 other fantastic completions. One was a touchdown. One was a long third down conversion that were called back on penalties. He did what you needed him to do. And my goodness, to not be excited about what he can bring to the Steelers. But I don't want to see him go out there and get killed if they're good. If could you imagine him? I don't want anyone to have to deal with what Mitch Trubisky had to deal with at the beginning of this game. My goodness.
Okay, so we can go one of 2 ways here. We can go the positive way and start positively, or we can go negative. Which way do you want to go?
No, we'll do whatever you want.
Okay, we've just talked a lot about Kenny Pickett, so let's start with the positive. Kenny Pickett did have a good game. I want to read you his stat line here. He only threw the ball 7 times, but he had 6 completions for 76 yards. He did throw a touchdown, no interceptions, wasn't sacked, but was hit multiple times for a rating of 151.5. That's not what I want to talk about here. That's the numbers are the numbers. If anyone watched the game live, you saw it looked different with the same players as Mitch Trubisky had when he was in there. It just looked different from I'll even go as far as saying the weird series that was the completion, then the two players shifting at the same time, then the weird awkward timeout. Like even that, when the play was actually being run, it looked different. It looked better. The eye test to me doesn't lie. Kenny Pickett had a good game, even though he only was in there for a brief stint. Dave, what are your takeaways? Anything you haven't said yet about Kenny Pickett?
All right, because I was looking it up. I want to make sure about if you missed it. Did you miss the rush for -4 yards? Because he wisely took the knee whenever there was an issue,
okay.
And then they declined the penalty.
So they declined it. That's how it becomes
the
a
illegal
shift.
Rush.
Yes,
they declined it. And because everything was all off there. He couldn't do the end around. Both guys were real in motion, blah, blah, blah. It's a busted play. He just takes a knee and then they decline it. So therefore he has a -4 yard rush, which really is a big deal. But if you think about it, let me ask you this one. Would they have hit it the same way if Jacksonville would have got converted on that 4th down? And held the ball out to the end of the first half, and KP8 would have only had 1 drive. He got 2 drives.
Yeah.
And the first one, he completed 2 passes, but because of all the penalties, it didn't matter.
Right.
But you just couldn't get it all done. It's going to kill it. So I'm ecstatic with what he's done. So I just don't know that he's going to be the guy out there come September 11th when they're in Cincinnati. I don't know that's I'm ready to even say that I want that because of the other things that are coming along. But you've got to be excited for the future, depending on when that starts.
Correct. Tom Muir gives us $2 when I get this on the screen. He says they still didn't let KP throw down the field. KP didn't have time to throw it down the field, but even in the limited amount of time that he did have, he was attacking the middle of the field.
Yeah,
that was the big difference.
That's what I like.
He threw a pass to George Pickens and got him involved. Pat Freiermuth had 2 catches when Kenny Pickett was in there.
Back to back.
These targets were open when Mitch Trubisky was in there, but Mitch Trubisky did get flushed out of the pocket a good bit. We'll talk about him. Also, $4.99 from the Lost River Drive-In. Thank you very much. He said, I was in agreement that Mitch deserved to be the one until proven otherwise. At this point, Kenny has proven otherwise. He's just simply the best here. This is, I'm sitting here and after the game, we're listening to Mike Tomlin talk, and he always tries to downplay a lot of this stuff and these narratives. But whether he likes it or not, the narrative this week is going to be, should Kenny Pickett get a legitimate shot to be the starter in week 1? I don't think there's any chance that happens unless Trubisky gets hurt. But Kenny Pickett, even in only 2 series of play, went out and put together enough of a performance that people are sitting there thinking, this guy's the team's best option. When you look at Mitch Trubisky, I want to talk about his stats here. He finished with 5 of 8 for 60 yards. He didn't have a touchdown, no interceptions. He was sacked once, an 85.4 rating, and he had 1 rush for 10 yards. But if you watch the game, it's really tough for me to point a finger and say, yeah, you stunk tonight. It was the offensive line that stunk tonight. They had free rushers coming in every possible angle at Trubisky. At one point, I thought he was going to throw the ball left-handed because he had the ball in his left hand and was scrambling out of the pocket.
Yeah.
But Dave, talking about quarterbacks, sticking with that theme, Mitch Trubisky, what were your thoughts on his play?
As little time as he had and as much as he was trying to do, you're kind of surprised he even got them to have a field goal attempt. It would have been nice to see that there would have been 3 points up under Mitch Trubisky and his 3 drives out there. But this poor guy, did it not look like Ben Roethlisberger 10 years ago, the way he was not refused to go down and scrambled around and was still at least able to make a throw, whether it was completed or not. I'm not talking about the whole thing with Ben Roethlisberger. I'm talking about his ability to not go down on first contact and elude some players and still be able to get the ball out. But then on the third down play on his second drive, did he even get to plant his back foot before he was hit? I don't think he did. The pass rush was on him so much there. I really don't know how you can grade Mitch Trubisky with that. It's kind of like I don't know if we don't have Bad here to give us a good analogy of trying to figure it out. It's so much of it was beyond his control, and he was just trying to make the best out of bad situations. So you can't say that he looked great, but you can't say that he looked bad because of what was happening.
Well, but then Sean Manahan says this, and I thought the same thing. As I'm talking about how it's not Mitch Trubisky's fault, and that the offensive line looked horrible, and he says this, and he's right. It was the same offensive line with Kenny Pickett in the game though.
This is my thought on that. I'm glad you said that. This is my thought because I know, was it Jeffrey or someone said it in the Slack channel? Boy, it seemed like the offensive line was blocking better for Kenny Pickett. No. How bad were they blocking the Pickett's first drive? How bad were they blocking in the second half? Notice the only time, and I don't know that they were blocking better. I really want to go back and look at the tape. But it was enough to get by. The only time it seemed like the offensive line was doing enough for the Steelers to do much of anything was in the 2-minute offense.
Yeah.
In the 2-minute offense. It's not that it was better for Kenny than Mitch. It was better in the 2-minute offense, and it just so happened to be Kenny running the 2-minute offense at the end of the first half. I don't know if it would have been different if those two guys would have had their drives flip-flopped. So it's just it's a different variable.
You kind of want to see if maybe there was a little bit more tempo in the offense in general, if that would have made a difference. Go ahead and read this one, Dave. Read this super chat.
All right. This is from Permanent Pictures. Is that right? Permanent? I said it. Okay. $5 in the tip jar. Thank you very much. Says, Kenny's pass to DJ had great anticipation. He is decisive and not afraid to trust his arm. Same with his second pass to Muth. Should be the starter. I'll be honest with you, though, Jeff. One thing that I think, to me, it's a little bit easier to play carefree when you're not the guy trying to be the guy, rather than being the guy and trying to stay the guy.
Well, if you're talking about pressure on a quarterback, there's pressure on. There is amount of pressure on Trubisky, but there's also a massive amount of pressure on Pickett.
But and honestly,
you were the
and I say that it's a lot easier to say, like, hey, if you're trying to chase the guy down, it's a lot easier to do those kind of things. Honestly, with KP8, I don't think it matters. I really don't. I don't. I think he just is who he is.
He's really cool and calm, like kind of like everything that hits him is like water on a duck's back, where it just rolls right off. I mean, we haven't seen him face a lot of adversity in the minimal snaps we've seen him play in the NFL. Yeah. But all reports out of training camp were that if he had a bad practice, the next practice was a lot better. And he keeps getting better and he keeps improving. And, Mike Tomlin, again, he'll say, well, we expect that from all of our rookies. Yeah, but this is your first round pick. It is your quarterback that everyone's saying could be the next franchise, maybe not this year, franchise quarterback, but in the future. And I don't know. Let's get this super chat. Steel Dog 88. Do you think the Steelers hand may be forced to make a trade for?
You think their hand is forced?
Okay, there you go. Okay, thank you. Do you think that an inside linebacker forced?
I don't think they're forced. I think if you have the opportunity that you might take it. But last year, a Joe Schobert came up as a possibility where the other team was willing to pay part of the salary, and it only cost, what was it, a sixth? I mean, it was a year ago. I'm trying to remember. I don't know that they're going to have a situation like that again that they can really step up to. So I don't think it's forced, but I don't think they should not answer the phone. That's a whole different story.
Well, let's stick with the offense though. Let's stick with the offense. We talked about the quarterbacks. Mason Rudolph, like I said, I thought that, believe it or not, Mike Tomlin at the post-game press conference gave a really good analogy when he said it kind of reminded him of when Byron Leftwich and Charlie Batch were backups, and he said, you could just tell they're veteran quarterbacks. They've seen starter caliber repetitions, and they're playing against these third and fourth stringers. Still, Mason Rudolph goes out and he does get after the Justin Lane interception, turns that into a Lustin James.
Oh, okay. I got you.
To Tyler Snead wearing number 84 for the game-winning score. They did not convert.
I keep getting the Tylers mixed up.
Tyler Vaughns and Tyler Snead.
Yeah.
Vaughns is 80. He's the closer. That's what I've called him in the preseason.
Trust me, you can't get them mixed up when you see them on the field, because one's tall and one is not. I just can't get I get their names mixed up. Yeah.
Tyler Snead is, I think, 5'7". He's a really short guy. And you could just tell when he scored that touchdown, the sideline went nuts. And Najee Harris was down there. I mean, most of the time in a fourth quarter preseason game, guys aren't going to be too excited if someone scores a touchdown. But they were excited about that guy getting in the end zone. But I want to talk to you first and foremost about the offensive line, Dave. Now, I'm sure that you want to go back and watch the game again.
Yeah.
But when you look at some of these numbers, they're absolutely anemic. Rushing, the Steelers had 14 carries for 24 yards. Now, that does include Gunnar Olszewski's -3, Kenny Pickett's -4, Benny Snell -2 on 3 carries. That's kind of comical. But they averaged 1.7 yards per carry, that's fantastic. That's sarcasm, by the way, folks. And then in the passing game, they did throw 36 times for 255 yards, a 7.3 average, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. They only surrendered 1 sack. But when you look at Jacksonville's quarterback hits, they have them listed as 4. I feel like they had 4 on Trubisky alone. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not buying into that stat line. What were your thoughts on
he got away from him?
Yeah, you're right. But the offensive line, especially early in this game, just looked – you could pick the player that's not named Mason Cole, because he was the one guy that I was like, wow, I didn't see anyone coming right up the gut. They were beating Dan Moore on the edge. Kendrick Green was getting pushed back into the lap of the quarterback. James Daniels was whiffing on simple blocks. This wasn't a stunt like last week. This was just one-on-one. He lost. What were your thoughts on the offensive line?
Okay, I'll say this: if some of you that are tuned in right now haven't necessarily been here throughout the entire offseason as we are breaking things down, and one thing that I was reminding people is Steelers fans are always excited about those free agents and they're going to be so great, but for every great free agent, what were my examples of great free agents? They're escaping me right now. In recent years, for every great free agent.
So you talking about like a Dante Moncrief?
You have no. That's the bad one. You get a Dante Moncrief. I couldn't remember who my good example was. Oh, like even for every Steven Nelson, who was a good player for the Steelers.
Yeah, for sure.
For every Steven Nelson, you have a Dante Moncrief. Then someone's going to be in there, and all of these guys that the Steelers signed aren't going to pan out. And I was really concerned about maybe that's Mason Cole. But what scares me to death is if it's James Daniels. Yeah. And I'm not saying that he can't turn it around and he can't get better and just get more comfortable and go out there and get some quality play. But I didn't think he played very well last week, and I think he played even worse this week. So it's concerning. And the biggest thing with the Steelers last week is the pass blocking wasn't great, and they went against a better defense this week.
Yeah.
But at least they had some good run blocking and could run the ball effectively. To me, it's not that the run blocking was bad, it was awful and worse. I mean, it was later on because, my goodness, I'm like, can anyone, a running back or a quarterback, have the ball and not get crushed in the backfield? The one time I couldn't believe that Jaylen Warren got a 1-yard gain when he had what seemed like half the defense on him 3 yards in the backfield. And he managed to get 1 yard out of it. But what I think wasn't doing the Steelers any favor was I've always tried to go to bat for the guy, but my goodness, does it look like Benny Snell has concrete blocks on his feet? Yeah. I mean, they gave him that pitch, and I'm like, it's taking him forever to get out there. Then they run up the middle, and it's like he comes up and he stutter steps and everything else. Jaylen Warren comes in the first play, and it is boom, explosive up into the middle when he ran up into the middle. There's a huge difference there. I think Benny Snell running behind this offensive line is an awful combination. It's an awful combination. But then Benny Snell goes out there and then crushes someone on a punt, and then that shows why the Steelers keep him around. But having no rush attack and then the pass blocking looking even worse, it's very concerning, because if you can't do what you need to do with the offensive line, just enough to be adequate. You don't have to be all world offensive line. The Steelers proved that in their last Super Bowl victory. But if you're not even adequate, how can you get anything else done? They've got to step up and really do something.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I look at it and say, what kind of improvement are we looking for that is actually realistic when it comes to the offensive line? Everyone, maybe, they start to gel a little bit, because even last year, there were moments where we thought that the offensive line was starting to, really get it going. And then they took several steps backwards after Kevin Dotson got hurt. Well, I think that there's a couple things, but let's get this super chat up here. Yeah. Andrew Palladino gives us $10. Thank you very much. He said, how do we improve the offensive line? We've been patching that thing for over 2 years. Seems we still haven't done enough. What's it going to take? Need a stud, not an average Joe, a big trade. Thank you, Andrew, for the tip. We appreciate it. I think improving the offensive line, it is a new scheme. Got to keep that in mind. Pat Meyer's scheme is going to be a little bit different. New faces, new places, whether you're talking about Kendra Green possibly at left guard, whether you're talking about James Daniels, Mason Cole, but Dan Moore Jr. played 3 quarters tonight. If it gives you any indication as to what Mike Tomlin thought of his play in this game. TJ Watt sacked Trevor Lawrence, and then there was a timeout, and he never came back on. So it's like Mike Tomlin said, okay, you're good. You can go have a seat. We don't need you anymore. But Dan Moore played almost 3 full quarters in this game tonight. So I don't think there's any easy fix for this line. I think the offensive scheme can help them. And I'm not talking about the super fast, throwing the ball out to the side, very horizontal style offense that we saw last year with Ben Roethlisberger. But I think maybe having a Jaylen Warren is more conducive to helping this offensive line than a Benny Snell, like you kind of alluded to, Dave. Even an Anthony McFarland, we know Najee Harris will be fine. Utilizing the middle of the field, those quick hitting passes, that might be the way they have to go. People talk about trades and stuff like that. Yeah, they could happen, but at the same time, that's going to be a player coming into a new system, and that's going to take time to gel as well. So, and that immediate impact, I don't think it exists if you're talking about a big-time trade for an offensive lineman. But, Dave, what do you think? What is the elixir for this offensive line?
I don't know that there is one. That's the problem. I'll tell you one thing that I think will help moving forward. You've got to make your decision at left tackle now and let that unit work together.
I think you have to make a decision at all positions, Dave.
Yeah, but
you got to pick your left guard. Who's it going to be?
I said left guard, right? Or did I say
you said left tackle?
I said the wrong position. It's 11 o'clock at night. I was up earlier today than I have been in 3 months. I'm tired. I said the wrong word. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Left guard. That's what I meant. The decision at left tackle is what it is. I mean, they're rolling with Dan Moore Jr. That decision was made before, in my opinion. And it's not like anyone else is out there that's going to take that away from him. And he blocked well in run blocking last week. So you can, and he had some nice run blocking blocks last week. So you can see what he can do. Tonight was not it. All right. I really do need to go back and watch this a little bit more thoroughly. And does it really help the guy that there's a carousel next to him?
Oh, no.
No. Pick your left guard and keep that unit together as much as you need to do it.
Yeah.
You're just going to have to do it. Pick your left guard and go.
I agree. 100% I agree. And for those that are suggesting to trade Mason Rudolph somehow for some stud tackle or whatever, that doesn't happen.
No.
No one is making that trade.
No.
You might get a tackle or a guard, but it's not going to be a stud. It's going to be a second to third tier player. So I think Kendrick Green, the thought was there. I understood the thought. Give him a chance at left guard. You spent a 3rd round draft pick on him last season. It's just not it.
I said it last year when everyone wanted to move him to guard because they said he couldn't handle center. I don't think he's a guard. I don't think he's a guard. His arms are too short and he's not big enough to be a guard the way the Steelers have typically had guards. He's not. He's like the shortest arms and smallest guy of any guard in the NFL is what he is. But he is what they wanted. He had the measurables that they wanted as a center. Unfortunately, it just wasn't a mix. And with the way it worked, he wasn't, you thought, oh, he's center capable. He has what we wanted center. Let's bring him in. We'll have him be a center. And it just didn't work. You almost have to ask yourself, is that why there was a very quick and huge parting with offensive line coach Adrian Clem last year? Was that a Clem pick? I have no idea. I really don't. So I think him not playing a center, I don't think I think he could fill in at guard, but I don't think he's going to give you that quality play at guard. I think you need to make Dotson your starter. You're trying to motivate him. Maybe you're worried about his motivation. Get him out there and get them working together. Dan Moore Jr. needs more stability next to him. Mason Cole needs more.
Yeah. No, there,
right. And James Daniels I was more excited about that free agent pickup than I even was Mitch Trubisky, before the draft, before you even know that the Steelers were going to get a quarterback there. And so far it just hasn't worked. Doesn't mean that it won't. It's either going to take more time. Someone doesn't know how to block and do a nice job blocking for their first 4 years and then suddenly not be able to do it. It's all about scheme and comfort and cohesion there. It's either going to come or else it's just the wrong fit. It's one of the two. It didn't go away from someone that age that they just signed.
It is a pretty damning statement, though, when you draft a guy in the 3rd round, he starts almost every game in his rookie year at center, and then the very next season, 0 center snaps, and they move him to guard. Yeah. That's pretty damning, in my opinion.
I didn't think he was great at center, and I think he's even worse. He's even worse at guard so far this year.
So this answers Tom's question. Tom Muir gives us $5. Thank you very much, Tom. He said, is this our best offensive line? Moore at left tackle, Kevin Green at left guard, Mason Cole at center, Dotson at right guard, Chooks at right tackle. Now, so this would be moving Dotson to right guard, which is, I think that was his natural position in college, if I'm not mistaken. And this would be James Daniels, one of the prized free agents, turning into an interior offensive line backup. I'm not sure if this works for me, but what about you?
No, because James Daniels has at least shown that he has done it before. Now, people would say, well, what about Trey Turner? He showed that he'd done it before, and he came to the Steelers, and it was just or even less than It wasn't blah, but I would say it's less than in my opinion. But with Daniels, he still should be on an upward trajectory based on his years played and his age, where Turner, it was not the same issue. That's the difference, because Daniel should be improving. So the fact that he's struggling now, you've got to figure out what's going on with him. I don't think he's got the yips. I don't think he just suddenly can't block. I think they've got to get it all worked out in there. There's something more going on there.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I agree with you 100%. I want to move on from the offensive line. We can spend an entire hour on them. I think they need to make their call. This 3rd preseason game is going to be the final dress rehearsal coming up at Acrisure Stadium on Sunday at 4:30 against the Detroit Lions. I think you want to get that unit as much time together as possible, but I'm not going to be shocked if they say, well, this is going to go down to the wire, and next thing you know, the offensive line isn't gelling right away, but I digress. Let's go to the finish up the offense, the receivers, excuse me, Tyler Vaughn's finished 4 of 56, led the team in receiving. Pat Freiermuth, 2 of 35. Deontay Johnson, 2 of 33. Chase Claypool, 1 catch for 29 yards. It's a nice grab for him. Jaylen Warren, 3 of 24. Tyler Snead, 3 for 17. Benny Snell, 2 for 15. I'm sorry, Snead and Snell both had a touchdown. And then a bunch of other 1 and 2 catch players. What about the pass catchers, Dave? What were your thoughts?
I was, it was nice to see Deontay Johnson and Chris Claypool. Wait, someone needs to tell the Jacksonville announcers that it's Chase Claypool. That to see them out there. I mean, Claypool. I mean, he really had 1 for 29, but he had the other one that was called back. It was nice to see them get involved, but because they were. Kind of seemed a little bit like George Pickens was not really, what fans saw last week. Kind of the same deal with Connor Hayward, with both of the other tight ends coming in front of him. So it kind of gave us a better picture of things with the Steelers, because you had your top tight end and your quote unquote top 2 receivers, but it was still spread out some. I have no problems with the wide receivers. I'm not seeing obvious drops. I mean, I thought Benny Snell had one. Other than that, I'm content. The quarterback's got to have time to throw in the ball.
Yeah, it's tough to assess. I mean, outside of Kenny Pickett's scoring drive to finish the half, there was no rhythm and flow to this offense. Yeah. It was just nothing but sporadic. And every time you thought that was a big play, like the touchdown to Deontay Johnson, all right, yes, and it's coming back. 2 offsetting penalties, stuff like that. So it was tough to gauge for sure. Matty Peverill gives us $2.99 dingo dollars. That's Australian money, whatever they call that down there. He said maybe Chooks doesn't help with Daniel's adjustment.
Yeah, I mean that could very well be.
You never know.
I mean, it takes time to adjust to that guy next to you, and you pretty much have to know what they're thinking and work together. That's how it works, and that just takes time. And that's why I'm saying figure out what your whole starting line is and get them out there in practice as much as possible. And you don't have to worry. Don't worry about the other guys. Just make sure these guys, of course you worry about the backups when you have to, but who cares if your backups are getting enough reps if your first team isn't getting the job done?
Very true. Let's go to the defense. The Steelers, let's talk about the rush defense first. They actually hold Jacksonville under 100 yards, 30 carries, 97 yards, a 3.2 average. But even in the first, they were running the ball well. You had Travis Etienne finished with 8 for 29, a 3.6 yard carry. You can throw
that seemed like more, didn't it?
It did.
I was surprised when I saw that. I looked at halftime and saw his average. I'm like, I felt like he was doing more than that. But that's just me. Sorry.
The Snoop Connor, he boy, that guy runs hard. Yeah. He was a tough guy to stop. But other than that, I mean, you think about how the Jacksonville Jaguars moved the ball on the Steelers defense. It was primarily through the air, but they kind of did whatever they wanted. They threw for 270 yards, no touchdowns. They did have 1 interception. Trevor Lawrence, who played the entire first half, finished 14 of 21 for 133 yards. Again, I think where you see the difference here is in the time of possession. Jacksonville Jaguars had 34 minutes and 21 seconds of time, whereas Pittsburgh just 25 and 39 seconds, 25 minutes, 39 seconds. So very much skewed.
That was all first half, if you really look at it, because the second half, there was less than 30 seconds separation between the two's time of possession. It was the first half where the Steelers didn't even get 11 minutes of possession in the first half.
Yeah. But, I think there's a lot of people out there that when they think about the first team, yes, TJ Watt did get his sack for sure, but it just seemed like, and this is Eamon, I'll put his super chat up here at $4.99. It was exactly where I was going to go with this. He said, what's up with the run defense? It just seemed like they couldn't slow them down. Thank you, Eamon, very much for the tip. We appreciate it. it just didn't look right. And yes, Cam Hayward was not in the lineup. That's not going to help at all. We understand that. But TJ Watt was in there. Alex Highsmith was not. He's a very good run defender. I don't know, Dave. What were your thoughts on the run defense?
I thought it was better than last week. I did. I'm not saying it was great, but it was better. It was actually even better in the second half. It was 61 yards in the first half and therefore 36 yards in the second half. So the Steelers did a better job defending the run in the second half, where the Steelers doubled their rushing output. They had 8 yards in the first half rushing and 16 in the second half. Jeez. So, but yeah, I mean, they kept him under 100 yards on 30 attempts. Normally you would say that, 3.2, that's not bad. A 3.2 yards per carry in a game where the team's rushed it 30 times and hasn't hit 100 yards. That's generally, you would think of that as on the better side, because I don't know if it's right around 3.5 is what you would think about. So I felt it was improved with this game. It wasn't perfect because there was just times where all of a sudden, just every once in a while, it was like, oh, there's the run defense we saw before. And then they'd turn around and they'd have a 1 yard loss, or, stuff them at the line of scrimmage. Oh, wait, there's one that we saw before. It was to me right now, it's inconsistent is the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Let me ask you about the inside linebackers, because that was definitely a talking point last week. Everyone was ripping on Devin Bush, not just for his comments, but his lack of effort on the field. So we saw a lot of Devin Bush, saw a lot of Miles Jack. Dave, what were your thoughts of the inside linebackers?
Well, I thought Miles Jack wasn't as splashy as he was. And I say not splashy, it's not like it was turnovers and whatnot. I thought that with his very limited snaps last week, he was wow. He wasn't the same wow factor. I'm not saying he was bad. It just wasn't the same. I thought Devin Bush looked better this game, but as bad as he looked last game, I don't think there was a much more of an option there. It's not like he looked great, but he did look better at times. I was focusing more on trying to focus as much on the defensive line and the front five as I could. So I was trying to catch replays as the game was going on, just to try to see what was going on a little bit with the linebackers. I felt overall the defense seemed better. The biggest thing that we'll get to that when we talk about secondary. It wasn't as bad as last week, but I still don't think it was great when it came to the inside linebackers and Devin Bush.
Yeah. It was a step in the right direction, in my opinion. Yeah. They didn't have those back-breaking runs that we saw last week against Seattle, so I understand when you said I thought it was better. But they did give up a lot of those 4-yard runs, 5-yard runs. You're setting up, I think you would call it manageable down and distances for the Jaguars offense. And the scary thing is that even on third downs, the Steelers were not very good defensively on third downs. They gave up a lot of third down conversions. I'm looking at the number here.
Yeah.
Third down efficiency, the Jacksonville Jaguars had 20 third down plays and converted half. They were 10 of 20. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh's offense was 3 of 11. So, that's no bueno, as they would say. So still, let's talk about another player that actually did. I think two players played extremely well of note. Andrew Palladino gives us $2 and says one of them, he said, what a day for Mark Robinson. The rookie's coming on. I thought he played much better.
Yes.
He was around the ball. I don't know if he could play worse. But I know that he had a good game.
He had the strip sack to help last game, but he wasn't playing well before that.
No.
So he didn't have the big splash. People that are only looking for splash plays, they would think, well, maybe he didn't do as much. Man, that was a pretty big hit he had there on that one short reception where he came up. I thought he had
played well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, he had a sack there, didn't he? He had one of them.
Yeah. Go ahead and I'll look it up.
Yeah. But I thought Robinson played much more relaxed this game. And I don't know about you, but I didn't see Buddy Johnson out there till the end. I don't remember seeing him that early on. Maybe they were out there together. I just didn't notice him as much. But when you see someone like 93 and you're seeing the number 93, whether they're making the play or right there with the play a lot, And it's not a play that's a run that should be for maybe 2 yards, and they're making a tackle 15 yards downfield. When you're not talking to those kind of situations where they're coming up and making plays where they matter, I thought he did a real nice job.
Yeah, Leal did end up having a sack, one of two. Obviously, TJ Watt having the other. Steelers only were able to get 4 quarterback hits in the game. So take
Same
that
as
for
last
what it's
week.
worth. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just couldn't get home with the 4. They didn't blitz a lot. There were not a lot of blitz calls. Maybe in the second half there were a lot of those corners coming off the edge or faking the blitz. They did a lot of that. But let's talk about the secondary. You mentioned the secondary.
Yeah.
We talked about Trevor Lawrence's stat line. They did convert a lot of third downs. Lawrence also ran the ball twice for 13 yards. The Steelers, let's look at past defenses. They only had 5, actually.
Well, 2 of them were on the offense or were on the defensive
correct,
line.
yeah.
Because Alawalo had one. I think Mondo had the other one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
They gave one to Tuska.
Oh, I thought Mondo had it.
It could have been.
Yeah.
They could always change that, but still. Yeah. What were your thoughts on the secondary?
I hate vanilla soft zone on 3rd and long. I mean, to me, you're not doing anything to make the offense not adjust where the open spots are going to be. It was so obvious where the weak spots of the zone were going to be the way they were playing it on 3rd and long. And that's why Jacksonville could convert on the 3rd and long, because all they had to do was have time to pass the ball and it was going to be there. So I don't blame the secondary for that. And I also don't think that they should be tipping their hand too much. But other than those plays that are really frustrating, I thought otherwise they were there. I mean, especially the plays sometimes even just coming up and assisting with other things. I mean, KZ made the great tackle on the catch on 4th down. I thought Terrell Edmonds, where they were bringing him up to do some other things, had some nice plays. I'm not saying he had a great game. I'm just saying I know he had some nice plays. I didn't notice him enough outside of those. That I still think there's positive things to do. But to me, are they going to have how is the communication going to go when the defense gets more complex? When they're not just doing vanilla. I'm trying to look here. Coach Tomlin said that they blew some defensive assignments. That's not just in the secondary. That could be filling gaps and things of that nature. But you could also expand it to that. So I think that's what's really tough when it comes to secondary. You're just basically out there saying, hey, here's our vanilla defense, and we're going to do great. And they've got to be able to turn around and not and play their non-vanilla defense come week 1 and be able to have perfect communication.
Well, I think it was Jeffrey Benedict who put in the Slack channel and said, people aren't going to like to hear this, but when you're running just a basic zone on 3rd and long and not trying to do any exotic schemes, they run a simple zone beater and it looks like the defense can't figure anything out. But
exactly.
In reality, they're not doing, like you said, it's just very vanilla.
Yeah. You know this play is going to work because you know what defense they're going to line up in.
Yes.
And they're playing checkers, not chess.
Right. So when you think about all those things, you continually give the defense a crutch. Think about last week. Well, the rush defense wasn't any good, but Larry Ogunjobi wasn't in, and Tyson Aluwalu didn't play, and Cam Hayward didn't play, and TJ Watt didn't play. I could go on and on. And so now we're saying, well, it's vanilla defense. We got to see what it does when it's the real proverbial bullets start to fly. But I think that at some point you want to see even the vanilla work a little bit better and a little bit more than what we did. And so I think a lot of Steelers
can still be delicious.
It absolutely can be. It absolutely can be. I think a lot of Steeler fans just have a bad taste in their mouth right now. Yeah. They're not sure what to think. They went from this really exciting, really high up on the really, really pumped last Saturday night to this, and you're just not sure how to respond. Where is the equilibrium here? Where is the norm? Is it more of last week? Is it more of this week? I hate to tell you, fans, it might be a little bit of both.
Yeah. Well, but here's the other thing to think about. I kind of alluded to this last week. I said don't get sucked up into the quote unquote killer bee era, thinking that offense is really what you need, and it's all about the offense, and the Steelers wasted stuff when they had a good offense. Last week, everyone feels great because the Steelers had an offense, but they gave up 25 points. But the offense scored 32. This week, oh man, it's such a downer because they only scored 16 points. But the defense only gave up 15. Scratch that. The defense only gave up 13.
13, yeah.
You know?
It is interesting. Let's spend some time on the specialists. We didn't talk about them a lot last week, but Chris Boswell was kicking, so was Presley Hartman.
He kicked the first half.
Right,
Yeah.
and he was 0 for 1. He missed a 53-yarder.
53. Yeah.
He hit the left upright, but at least from my television, that looked like it hit halfway up the upright. And
it was 2/3.
I was thinking to myself, if this thing goes through, it would have been good from 67. I mean, it was insane, the leg that he had. And I know it's Florida and it's warmer down there, but still, Chris Boswell, a lot of people were upset that he missed it, but whatever. He finishes, like I said, 0 for 1 with field goals, did make the extra point attempt. Presley Hartman, 4 punts, averaged 44.3. I think the biggest punt wasn't even one that would count. And that was after the safety, the free kick. He really got to lay into that one and pushes the guy back and almost caused a fumble. I thought Presley Hartman did well.
Am I not remembering right? But I seem to recall, because you get a free kick, but you're kicking from the 20.
Yeah.
Right? That generally teams get pretty decent field position following a safety.
Generally.
Not when big press doesn't have any kind of rush and he can just boom his punt out there, man. They pinned him inside the 20. That one was a person. I love the consistency. I felt he was very consistent with his punts and he had great hang time.
Yeah. Gave his coverage units a chance to get down there and make a play. The Jacksonville Jaguars returners seemed like they were hell-bent on turning the ball over at some point. They never did, but they were trying their darndest to do it. Yeah. So, but still, I want to give some props to Presley Hartman. Slim press, as he's lost some weight, seems to be finding some consistency. So we'll see. Go ahead, Dave.
Sorry, I cut you off before you got to finish because I wanted to talk about big press.
Sure.
But you were still going to go to the kick returns?
I wasn't going to touch that. I don't even know if they had one kick return.
They had 2. I mean, McFarland brought one out from the end zone that I didn't think he would, and he got out to the 35. And then Gunner's was decent as well. I was wanting to see Gunner run one back. He finally had the opportunity. And I thought they did fine. It's not like they're busted for a touchdown, but if you're going to be an offense that has to, quote unquote, methodically move the ball down the field because you might not have time for the big shots, every yard helps on those. So I thought they were good.
Yeah. Go ahead. What were you going to say about big press?
No, I already did about big press.
Okay.
I said I didn't know if you were going to go on to the returners when I jumped into talking about big press.
No, we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
So let's just do overall here, Dave. Thoughts on the game, maybe a tidbit of advice to the listener out there, kind of your final thoughts on this game before we wrap it up.
Final thoughts on this game is there's a lot of things that you could say made it for a different experience. They were not in the friendly confines of Acrisure Stadium, although I don't think they had to worry about a huge crowd. No, I mean, my goodness. I mean, you're watching these extra points and field goals go up, and I'm like, is even half the stands filled?
Yeah,
I don't know, but and I'm sure there's lots of Steelers fans, which was nice. Our own Jeremy Betts was there at the game, so there's always things that you can find that were better than last week. And there's also things that you can find that weren't. And there's also things you can find that were just as encouraging. It's really easy to look at KP8 and be like, wow, that is just, I don't know that he played better than last week because last week was really good, but he did just as well this week. Gotta love things like that. But then there's the discouraging things of the offensive line. You might be a little bit discouraged by the Steelers' run defense, but you got to look at it. It was improved from last week. The question is, was it improved enough? So that's the thing you have to remember. Now you've got 2/3 of your sample size of what you ultimately need to shape this team into the 53-man roster. So now it's not, after last week, it was great, but you still had more games left than what you had played. Now you've only got one more shot. So it's really going to be interesting to see how the Steelers shape this roster, who's going to need to make some moves in order to have a chance, who might still have a chance to blow their opportunity that might be set there for them right now. It wasn't all bad. They did win the game, which does make you feel a little bit better. It wasn't all bad, but there's definitely a lot to learn from this game. And going on the road for the first time is always an interesting thing. So it was nice to, they made the trip, they did everything they had to do there, and they have that experience behind them now. And now they can return to the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex for their practices now, like they will for the rest of the season.
Sometimes I like to try and put myself in Mike Tomlin's shoes. As I've talked about on podcasts before, I do have high school head coaching experience. It's not in football, but as a coach, in the preseason, whenever we would have scrimmages, I would almost like my team to not play poorly or to play poorly. I would like them to not go out and play perfect all the time. So when I think about last week, that's kind of perfect. And it's your first time back at home. Mm-hmm. It's a new stadium name, but you're in front of your home crowd and they play really, really great. The offense looks good. All the quarterbacks look good. Everyone's buzzing. It's a good way to start. If you're going to have a bump in the road, you'd want it to be in week 2. You'd want to still find a way to win. You'd want to have enough bad tape that you can really let these guys know how crappy they looked at times in that game. Refocus them. Show them that we're not even close to ready. And I think that's exactly what Mike Tomlin's going to do this week. I would expect in week 3, the game against Detroit, which will be on CBS, I believe. Thankfully, I don't have to rely on NFL Plus, which can go kick rocks. I just think that it's going to be a good motivational tool for the offensive line, for the run defense, for some of the linebackers to say, we have to get better. We cannot rest and just think that week 1 of the preseason was going to carry over into everything. So, and then for a lot of the rookies too, like George Pickens. Everyone was talking about George Pickens. Well, you're going to have to work harder. You're going to have to put your head down. You're going to have to grind. I like this. I like the fact that they found a way to win, yet it was ugly. And I'm sure the coaching staff's going to relish this like I would if I was a coach. So there you go. All right, Dave, anything else?
No, I'm just I still don't know that Kenny Pickett is going to be any different status come week 1 than I thought he was going to be before. But I tell you what, my biggest fear with him was that he would be put out there before he was ready. I don't have that fear anymore. I don't have that fear about that. So I am like, whenever the Steelers feel like it's the right time to go to him, whether it be week 1, whether it be week 4, whether it be, 2023, I'd probably, if you don't see Kenny Pickett this year, it's because a lot of very good things are happening for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because if they're not, there's no reason to not see him this year. Boy, I just said the word "not" in there a lot. But honestly, my biggest fear was, oh man, if he goes out there too soon, it's going to be bad. I no longer have that fear. So to me, that's my biggest takeaway from this game, and that is my ultimate final thought.
All right, are you going to the game next week?
Haven't decided yet. I had to get through this one first. I had the opportunity. I mean, I still have my tickets, and it's not going to be getting home at 5 a.m. So I might
4:30 kickoff, right?
Yeah, 4:30. I mean, it still makes for a late night. I still prefer the 1 p.m. games. Honestly, if I look at the weather and it's going to be 90 degrees, I'm probably staying at home because but no, I don't know. We'll see. I'll cross that bridge whenever we start prepping for next week. Got to one game at a time, Jefferson.
You have a plan, but you're going to stay light on your feet is what you're saying. All
right.
All right, folks, that does it for us for this post-game show. Steelers find a way to win 16-15. They're 2-0 in the preseason. Not that matters. and we will be back, or at least I will be back next week after the game on Sunday against the Detroit Lions. In the meantime, make sure you check out all of our podcasts, not just on YouTube and Facebook Live, but on our audio platform. You can find them anywhere where you get your podcast by searching Steelers or Behind the Steel Curtain. Subscribe and follow. You'll get audio content only, shows that aren't on YouTube or Facebook, like Dave's Stat Geek, My Let's Ride, Brian's Bad Language, all that good stuff. Check it out. You don't want to miss it. And that's it for us. We'll see you next week. Have a good one, everyone.